You'll know when you have a wild woman. She'll practice her craft without boundaries. She is truly autonomous. Her loyalty is only to the family she serves. She will not allow herself to be held back by a system she didn't create.
This podcast is for the birth keepers who want to grow and change, who are open to learning through self-reflection and supportive community. We are creating a space to explore without judgment. We are remembering we were born wild. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Born Wild podcast. I'm your host, Sophia Henderson, and I have with me Ava, our student midwife, and we'd like to introduce to you Karma, who's going to introduce herself, and we'll hear all about her journey.
Yes. Hi. Thank you so much, Sophia. I'm really grateful to be here. Gosh, introductions.
How are you?
Yeah, there's so many versions of this. I like to say that I am a woman that is in devotion to women. So I devote myself by supporting, caring, educating, and loving women. This looks like the practice of midwifery in the traditional sense. I'm in Canada here, so I cannot technically call myself a midwife because it's illegal to say that, which I think is ridiculous. And I believe that the only way that we're going to be able to reclaim what has been taken from us is to have women, like myself and those out there that are willing to stand in their power and say that they do midwifery in the traditional sense. And yeah, here I do this work. I support women. I'm still new, so been doing this for about 5 years officially, but I feel like the way that I've worked and supported and cared for women, mothers, young babies has been threads throughout my entire life. So yeah, it's a path that was already laid out for me, and I just happened to stumble upon it and remember that that was the way I was meant to go. So yeah, I feel like that's the best way to describe me right now.
That's so common, the remembering that people say. Well, where does your beginning of this journey start?
Yeah.
Wanting to hold women in this way.
Yeah, okay. So I'd say then when I officially really made the devotion that I was like, this is what I want to do. This was in 2019. I had just finished a Vipassana meditation on Vancouver Island, and I was speaking with a woman after we could talk. After the 10 days, we were able to talk again. And so we were just talking about oh, what's she doing? Where are we all going back to? And she had said that she had just finished a doula training and she was going to be, starting her journey into doula work. And instantly, right when I heard that, it was just everything was this is it. This is where you are.
So did you know what a doula was at that point?
I didn't know what a doula was, but I had previously, when I was in my early 20s, and I'd been a nanny since I was young. I traveled the world and I would nanny for children. I was always the one that was babysitting my cousins and taking care of them when they were babies. And then I was with my cousin in my early 20s when I was living in Toronto, and her partner had left her. It was a whole big thing while she was right at the end of her pregnancy. So my aunt had asked me, because my aunt was living in a different place about 3 hours away from her and didn't want my cousin to be alone because this was her first baby as well. So she asked if I would just go and hang out with her. So I did. And I ended up being with her, I think 2 weeks before the time that she gave birth. And then I stayed with her for another 6 or 8 weeks. And I was just doing what they say is postpartum care now. But at the time I was like, oh, my cousin, her partner is being an asshole and doesn't care about her. So I'm just going to step in and, helping her with the baby and helping her with bottles and feeding her and, taking the baby when she needed a break and just doing all of these things for her that I was like, oh, this is so natural to me. So it would be labeled as postpartum doula work. But at the time for me, it was just, oh, that's just what you do. So speaking to later in life with this woman who said she was going to be a doula, I just asked her about it and was just like, oh, wow, that makes so much sense. These are things I've already been doing. So yeah. So I went home, feverishly looked online for what it was that how I could get into this. And then I found a training from Gloria LeMay, which was happening in Vancouver. And it was all of it just happened to be perfect timing because it was I don't know, maybe a month later or 6 weeks later that she was holding her next cohort. So I joined that, spent this beautiful long weekend in Vancouver with Gloria and with Jessica Austin, who was another woman that Gloria had trained under, and she's passed now, but she was They were both just so phenomenal and amazing teachers. And I just remember taking all this information in and yeah, it just turning on all of these lights of like, wow, I knew this. I know this. I'm remembering this again. And it was so fantastic. And that was the moment where I was like, yeah, this is it. This is where I know I need to be. And the way that Gloria teaches, so she in BC is one of BC's very known traditional midwives. She chose not to get licensed when licensure came in through the 80s in BC because she knew how it would not be for the women and it would only benefit the medical establishments. So she stuck to her guns and didn't get licensed. So she's been teaching women ever since then skills of traditional midwifery, which she calls her doula courses. So I was just so fascinated by her and I reached out to her and, asked her, oh, can I, apprentice under you? This is what I want to do. This traditional midwifery route, it aligns so much with me. And she had said at the time, she's not taking on apprentices anymore. So, if I ever want to just learn from her, we can just, go out for coffee and things like that. So, and she was living on Vancouver Island and I was on the mainland. And then I ended up moving to Vancouver Island. So again, another star.
Recently?
It was, yeah, coincidentally.
Oh, wow.
Stars aligned that coincidentally I moved to Vancouver Island and then I took her up on the offer and I called her and was like,
Cool.
hey, can we, go to a cafe, go out for dinner? Can I just talk and pick your brain about birth? And I did that constantly because I was always like, oh, she's a wealth of wisdom. And it was just so wonderful to have her so near to me. We were island neighbors. So it was maybe an hour drive for me to go see her. And it was absolutely worth it to drive up the Malahat and spend this time with her and hear her stories and ask her questions. And she was just such a wealth of knowledge. And having an elder, a wise elder like that, practicing in this way was just solidified so much more for me that I was like, yes, okay, I know I'm in the right space.
Ava,
That
have
was
you heard of Gloria May? That's a good person to do some research
okay.
on. She's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, she's done amazing things for the midwives in Canada here, and she's been persecuted multiple times. She's been put in jail multiple times for the work that she does, but she stands true to her devotion to women and mothers and birthing in their freedom and in their power, and I respect her so much for that. And I'm so grateful that she was my entrance point into getting really solid about this work because learning from her was just and is just seeing her the things that she's doing now. She's still amidst a legal battle and just got out of prison not too long ago, and just seeing her strength and the power that she holds in the conviction that she has for the women that she supports and serves and is amazing. So yeah, that was like my inception into birth work, and I'm so grateful for it because it just led me on such a beautiful path.
Yeah, what amazing initiation. So
Mhm.
at that point, you feel like I've got the training. So how do you find the women?
Yeah, so I did that training and then I did a couple, online courses. I started just like putting my nose into books because then we started moving into the 2020 lockdowns time. So I lost my job, which
Oh,
was to my benefit. So I could, just stay at home and study. And I was like reading books feverishly and writing down stuff, learning about the female body, learning about the process of birth and everything, just like taking in all this information. And then I started because I was living on the island, I was starting to like hold women's circles and I was getting really into holding these containers. And that was kind of how the women, like they came to me. I wasn't necessarily seeking out. I was, putting my stuff on online and I had a website at the time and my Instagram was really birth related. And so women were, reaching out to me for questions and things like that. And then yeah, I started going to supporting birth. And I remember the first birth that I witnessed and supported was this really lovely woman who I'm still friends with now. And she's so beautiful. Her daughter is just, it's so wonderful to see her daughter grow as time goes on. And she reached out to me because she contacted a friend saying she wanted to birth, in her power at home, but didn't necessarily want to do it by herself and just with her partner. She wanted somebody to be there. And so we got in contact and I was kind of like, oh, does she want me there? Like I was still quite new, very, very new and like, oh my gosh, does she no, she could get someone better, more experienced. And she
had you
was
been to a birth at this point? Like, were you at your cousin's birth that you supported, or just like
right. So my cousin's birth, I was
you were there?
there. She had a hospital birth with a medical midwife. So I
Uh-huh.
was there for a bit of it. I didn't see the actual like birth experience, but was
Uh-huh.
there in her birthing time
Great.
until birth. And then right from hospital, brought her back home and took care of her. I had been to two births before this woman had reached out to me. So one was a hospital birth, which I wasn't actually meant to be there. I was just supposed to be her postpartum support. But as we were meeting up and talking about what she wanted for her postpartum support and getting closer to her birthing time, she was getting more nervous. And then she was like, do you think maybe you could come to my birth with me? And so I said yes. I was like, okay, yeah, you know what? This is my one and only time that I'll, go to a hospital birth. So I was like, I want to experience it to see what it was like. So I did. I went with her and I feel like I was more traumatized from her
I
birth
was
than
gonna
she
say, what
was.
was it?
Yeah, and it was four birth experiences. It wasn't like that bad, but still I needed like a good week and a half after that to kind of come down from that experience. And then I was like, yep, okay, did one hospital birth. I don't ever need to go to them again. If it's a conscious hospital birth, I don't support those. Not that I'm against it, but I can't do it. My body cannot hold that energy. So anyways, I did that and then I went to another birth afterwards, which was an interesting situation. I won't go into that one per se, but that was another birth that I went to. And then I had this woman reach out to me, my friend, to come to her birth. And that was the first one I did, just witnessing on my own. And yeah, I, kept saying to her, kind of like, are you sure? You really want me there? She's like, I do. I want you there. I'm asking you to be there. So like come to my birth. So I went. And it was so beautiful. And I just remember being in her home and just like listening to the birth sounds that she was making as she was in her pool, moaning and like talking to herself. And she was just, praying to her baby. And I was just, witnessing. And every now and then I'd bring her a little bit of water, I'd get her some honey, or just kind of peek my head around the corner to see how she was doing. But she was amazing. It was so beautiful to see that type of birth experience. And then just to support, I ended up supporting her as well after in her immediate postpartum time. I stayed with her for, I think, 3 days afterwards and just witnessing that experience. It will always stay with me. Like I said, I'm still friends with her now and with her baby and we'll be friends forever. It was just such a pivotal moment for myself to see her step into that power. And yeah, and then after that, it was just kind of word of mouth. My name kind of just got put around in places. It's like, oh, she's the woman that like knows a lot about womb work, and she's the woman that knows a lot about birth. And women would, reach out to me, and I was just like, yeah, okay. If you like, what do you need me to support you with, witness you with? And I would, if it aligned, I would do it. And yeah, that's just kind of how it is now still. I just wait for the women to come when they're ready and then they find me. And if not, I speak to women. I'll have women, kind of call me and just be like, I'm pregnant and like, I don't know what to do. Can you just talk to me about stuff? And I just have like hour-long conversations with women because I'm like, yeah, sure. Yeah, I love it. I love talking about birth. So I always am just like, I'm very open with that kind of stuff.
So whether it's like prenatal with your women's circles or just like chatting about it, or in the labor room, or postpartum, like kind of like doula work and tending to them
Yeah.
after you do. Yeah.
Yeah, I do all of it, full spectrum. Like I will work with women, in their time of bleeding, if they're trying to heal their menstruation and bring healing and acknowledgement to that. I've held like menarche reclamation ceremonies as well for women. I used to do that quite often when I was living on the island before. So yeah, and then women that are, wanting to get pregnant and working through their fertility journey, healing their cycles and things like that. And then prenatal work, pregnancy, postpartum, all of it. They say it's full spectrum, but I'm just like, it's just full woman care. I just work and support women throughout the entirety of their female continuum and wherever they kind of seek this guidance. If I can offer that, I will do it. And if it's something that I don't necessarily have education on or something that I don't necessarily do, I refer. I love connecting the web of women and being like, oh, I don't do this, but I know someone who's really
Yeah.
amazing at this. And yeah, just connecting all the little pieces of women together.
What has the on-call lifestyle been like for you? Has that been easy or challenging?
For me, on call, I haven't been on call for a while. I think the last birth I went to was in the middle of June. And I was on call for that birth. So it's quite easy for me, I think. Yeah, I don't mind it if I get very like invested with the families that I work with and the women that I work with. So being on call for me, and I don't take a lot of births at a time. It's usually just one woman, so I can really devote my time and energy to her. So being on call is quite easy. I work from home. So it's not like it's a disruption to my work. I don't have to take time off and things like that. I don't have children, so I don't need to find childcare. So I'm in a really beautiful spot right now that I can give a lot to these mothers if they're seeking that. And some they just want, very easy, not too much support, but just kind of the last birth I was at. She just wanted more kind of telephone support. And I did end up going to see her because she had some bladder things that needed to be worked out. She wasn't peeing and we resolved that. And then I left and then she birthed her baby. So, but the on call is quite easy for me. I always make sure I've got food for myself and, all the things that I need to be comfortable. And if I have to, yeah, wait it out, I wait it out and it's good.
Are there any like memorable stories, whether pregnancy or birth or postpartum, of things that were unique or, exciting or something that you would want to share? Birth stories are just like so fun and powerful.
Yeah. Gosh, let me see.
Have they all been butter births where they're just like,
No.
smooth and straightforward? I feel like it's so nice to hear the nuances of how normal and unique things can be.
Yeah. No, I think that first one I witnessed when it was me by myself there, that was a very smooth, easeful birth. And then I feel like after that, all of the births I've gone through, there has always been something, not necessarily, maybe an emergent situation, but there might have been something that could have I always look at it as how I view the birth compared to, pardon me, how the birth would be looked at through the medical lens. So
Right.
I was at a birth once where the woman was in her birthing experience was about 5 days long. And if she, I think, okay, well, if she was with a medical midwife after, day 2, day 3, for sure, she would have been brought to the hospital, induction methods, all of these things to quote unquote get the baby out, or else she would have ended up with a cesarean section. But she just needed that extra time for her body to unfold and for her baby to move down. So there's that. I've had birth experiences, a couple where there were other people in the area in the room that really their energy really shifted how it was interacting with the mother. And then that also shifted the full birth experience. Whereas I believe, I don't know if this is true or not, but I believe like if certain people weren't in the room and certain people weren't adding their energy towards and pushing their energy on the mother, the birth experiences would have been very different. Not to say that like I'm a person that will make your birth so beautiful, but just, having that outside energy, it can really create a lot of like struggle sometimes, or what's the word I'm looking for? Just having not the right energy in your birth can really impact it, is what I'm trying to say in the birth experience. So I've had that happen so far. I'm just trying to think if there are any like big, big things that I've witnessed. I have had to resuscitate a baby at one point, a birth that I wasn't even meant to be at that birth experience, but it just happened to be that I was called in to be there for extra hands of support and then ended up needing to resuscitate this baby. So that happened.
How does that look like when it's more of, autonomous or free birth situation? Like, because one question I had for you was like, what do you do or don't do at birth? Like where are your lines and what you're promising families are comfortable with?
Yeah.
For anyone who's like difference between medical midwife, doula, traditional midwife, like what is it that you are doing when you're there?
Yeah, so I'm very hands off when I speak to mothers and families when I'm like in the prenatal time and working with them. Explicitly say to them, I am not a medical midwife. I have never been trained as a nurse, never been to medical school. I've never done any of that sort of training. And I make it very clear to them that if that is what they seek, I'm not the person to be at their birth. And that's okay with me. If they want someone like that, I'm like, that's fine. But I make it very explicit that I don't do any medical model of care. I will not give Pitocin. I will not, bring epidurals or oxygen tanks or anything like that. I don't do any of that. I'm very just come with my little box of stuff and, it's very herbs and, tinctures and things like that. So I'm very clear with everybody that I speak to that that is not my way. I will never be trained as a medical provider. And they know that. And so that's one thing I make clear. And I don't do anything medical I feel like I'm super lax with how I support women because I want them to really tell me what it is that they want. I don't like going into the birth experience or the pregnancy experience and really trying to dictate like this is best for you. I really want these women because it's their time to shine and step into their power. So I really try and foster that of like, okay, you tell me what it is that you want. I have a fetoscope. I want to get another one. And so it's like, do you want to hear your baby's heartbeat through a fetoscope? I'll do that. And I'll show them how to use it so that I usually give it to them because I just work, as I said, one family at a time. So I'll give them the fetoscope, show them how to use it so that they can play with it on their own. But I don't do it like writing it down like, oh, it's a diagnostic, like we have to write down the heartbeats per minute. I don't do any of that. All the things I do are just for fun, as a mother to support her in the fun of her pregnancy. Cause it's like, yeah, cool. This is like really awesome. All these changes in your body. Let's like see what's happening. I'll put my hands on a woman's belly and palpate if she wants that, and try and find positioning and say like this is how I feel, this is what I think baby, where they're at, what they're doing, and get her to then do it herself and be like, do you feel that? There's that. I offer suggestion for herbal remedies for women to take throughout their pregnancy. I've had instances of mothers that have had like cholestasis, so it's like, okay, let's clear your liver, and I give them information for that. What else do I do? Lots of talking with women. I love to hear their stories. If they're a mother that has children previous to this, maybe they were hospital births or birth center births. I love to sit with them and hear their stories and how they processed those birth experiences and how they want to move forward with this experience, being more in their power and free of the system. Yeah, when it comes to the actual being in the birth energy when she's moving through her birth portal, again, I'm very hands off and I like to witness, I like to listen to where she's going, how she's doing, and that's kind of gives me a gauge of how far she's in her pregnancy or how far she is in that birth experience. I don't do anything, cervical checks. I don't do any of that. I don't have a Doppler. I don't use any of that. It's very, yeah, just like very holistic, I would say, because I really try to encourage these women to trust themselves. I always say, like, trust yourself. You know what's going on. Trust yourself, and just there for that reassurance. If things do start to be more complications moving into the way of an emergent situation, this is like conversations we'd have while within the pregnancy journey to see how it wants to be managed. And like I said, that one where I had to resuscitate a baby, I wasn't a part of their prenatal plan because I literally came in just very at the end. She had already been 2 days, I believe, into her birth portal. So I just came in. So kind
You
of
like met her in labor for the first time. Yeah.
yeah. So it was like one of those, but it's like I'm not just not going to do anything. Billy Harrigan is a traditional midwife from Canada as well, but she's on the East Coast in Ontario, and she teaches really beautiful midwifery knowledge. And she says, be a useful human. Like, if you're going to support birth, you need to be a useful human if you're going to come into the birth space. And that doesn't mean it has to be all of these, diagnostics and medicals and checking and all of these things. It's just be a useful human. If you notice something, speak to the mother about what you see and see how she wants to move forward with that. And if it does become emergent, where, a mother can't respond back, let's say she's conscious or unconscious or whatever it may be, bleeding profusely, like have the skills and knowledge to be a useful human, to take care of the situation and bring things back to homeostasis, or else, make the choice to do something else, whether it be transfer or bring in more assistance, more help, more guidance in that way. So that's how I see it. I will do things if they need to be done, but I'm very like hands off and easy. And I feel like I don't even want to be in the presence of a mother in her birth portal, because even my energy, even if she's comfortable with me, my energy is still interacting with her and her baby in some sort of way. So it's like I'm kind of always like, I want to be in the background. I want your birth story as women. I say to them, for your birth story, when you're retelling this to your friends, to your family, to your sisters and circle or whatever it may be, I don't want to be a part of it. I want you to talk about how you stepped in your power throughout the whole entire time. And maybe once you'll mention, and then I remember asking my midwife when she was sitting in the corner, just quickly asking her if this was okay or asking her for water or whatever. But I don't want to be a part of your story, right? Like that's the kind of support and care that I'm trying to give, and not because like I don't care. It's just like it's not about me. It's more about this woman claiming her power and stepping into her power, and she can only do that on her own. And I'm just literally there to witness it and support her and reassure her that where she's going is where she's meant to be.
I love it. For anyone interested, we interviewed Billy on our podcast, so I can
Oh,
link
nice.
her episode in the show notes. Yeah, she's
Nice.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another good name to look
Mhm.
into.
Yeah.
Is everyone? Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Can you speak a little bit too? Because we have people who listen who are families, but also like student midwives, doulas, people who just are, birth nerds. And can you speak to the like protections, like how to protect yourself? Because you spoke a little bit in the beginning
Mm.
about what Canada says you can and can't call yourself. And,
Mm-hmm.
you spoke a little bit to Gloria LeMay and
Mm-hmm.
her, just getting out of prison. And for people, because there is a big thing for people who want to show up for women and are like big fans of not being in jail,
Yeah.
like how can I show up in the way that feels good in my heart and like protect myself too from this crazy world that it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter if the parents are happy with your care, like what does the state say about you, It's tricky and complicated and scary.
It is, yeah. And right now in Canada, I'm in BC. And right now there is a very big, as we say, witch hunt against a lot of these women that are supporting birth free of the system. I myself have been contacted by the BC College of Medical Midwives trying to coerce me and scare me with legal jargon, cease and desists or whatever it is to get me to stop doing the work that I am doing. This was a couple years back now, but I'm literally on a list that is like, watch out for this woman, she's dangerous. But like there's so many women that I am friends with in the area and friends with that we do this work together. And we're all just, on the blacklist of, within this organization. And it is hard for us because a lot of the women that do this work are mothers. So it's scary for them to get these cease and desist legal papers, which, it scares them because they don't want to go to jail when they've got little babies at home. They don't want to go to jail when they're trying to also tend to their families. And I get that. I completely get that. Like, I believe Gloria was in prison just recently for about 6 months. Granted, she is an elder, so, her children are older, but she also has grandbabies. Like, you don't want
Yeah.
to be in prison missing out on 6 months of your grandbaby's lives. And there isn't really a way around it that I can see other than you just have to be in the shadows now. I'm a lot more careful and quiet with the work that I do. I used to, post on Instagram and I had a website with all of my info and all of these things. And I was really, there for the activism of birth as well, which I still am. But because the college has come after me, um, yeah, I have to be a little bit more smart about the things I say, the things I do, the people I work with, because there are people out there that aren't, even if they're not connected to the college, just, normal people in the everyday world that aren't for women wanting to choose to birth in the way that they feel most comfortable. And for some women, that is free of the system with a wise woman sitting next to them. So I don't really see any other way for us to get around it other than just being quiet in the shadows, word of mouth. We attend births through the women that we've already been to. They speak to their friend, they tell their birth story, and then it's like, oh, wow, you did this at home and you had a wise woman. Like, how can I do this? Because these women are remembering as well that they have more power than what they have been taught to have throughout all of their life as a woman, from young womanhood until elderhood, but also with when it comes to their time of bringing children into this world. They don't know that they have this power that is just sitting to be awakened. And nobody's fostering that for them except for the birth workers and the people that are supporting them to step into their power and to birth their children in their freedom, to reclaim what has been there. So, yeah, I just feel like we can't really, there's always going to be this quote unquote war between the birth workers, whether it's the medical birth workers or non-medical birth workers, the traditional attendants, because we're doing sacred work. And when you're doing sacred work and your heart's work, there's always going to be a force that wants to stop that, because women stepping into their power is one of the most amazing things, the most powerful forces of being, just like the force of nature. And having that be overrun in cities, towns, countries, on the continents that we all live in would completely change the trajectory of the world that we're going into. So it's like it needs to be stopped. I'm not saying this, but like, these powers that be want it to be stopped to hold control over people. You hold control over women, you hold control over mothers, you hold control over the next generations of beings that are being brought into this world. So these women and mothers that come into their freedom, birth children in their freedom, birth children that are stepping into their power, birth children that will literally change the trajectory of the world that we're going into. So it's a battle and it's scary, but it's also exciting because what's happening, it's a catalyst for change. So even though, I'm blacklisted and a lot of other women in birth work in my area and just all across Canada are blacklisted and are told to look out for and, are deemed to be these awful human beings that are doing all of this crazy stuff. It's like, no, we're just simply listening to what mothers want, what women want for themselves. And we are saying, okay, we're supporting it. We're just literally supporting what a mother wishes to have for her choices for herself, her life, her birth, and her children. And that makes it seem like, because we do this, it makes it seem like we're these terrible people, but we're really not. We're just women who are mothers, or women who are in support of other women, women who are grandmothers, aunties. It doesn't matter who we are. We're just trying to do this work so that we can start bringing in beautiful change into the world. So there's no way that we can protect ourselves, I don't feel necessarily. We're only going to have protection from God, from a higher power, something that is higher than us. But right now in this physical 3D world, we're always going to have a target on our back. And that's something that you have to contend with if you're going to get into this business of birth work, especially when you're working outside of the system and not bowing down to these higher powers that are trying to control everything. If you're going to stand up for yourself and stand up for women, you've got to contend with the fact that you'll have a target on your back, and you really need to think about, especially if you have young children, you want to start a family, like there is a good possibility, especially here in Canada, that you could go to jail. So you have to think about that if you're going to do this kind of work. But then, I mean, there's also women that just do get their doula certifications and just do it that way. So it's like you don't have to go to the extreme. You can just, drop dose it little bits by little bits, and that's also fine too.
So does having your doula certification give you some protection that you
I
would,
don't have a doula
but just
certification,
in general,
but in
women?
general, like, I mean, I don't think so.
Yeah. Mhm.
No, I think
Okay.
the only thing that the doula certification, in my opinion, helps these women with that have it, it just allows, if they're working with medical midwives, whether it's a home birth or a hospital birth, or working with OBs in the hospital and supporting birth in that way, it just allows the medical providers, they'll be nicer to them. Because like, oh, she's a certified doula. Because
Yeah.
not all of them, but some of them, like they use the doulas to try and get them on their side. So, that it's like, oh, this mother has a doula. Okay, how can we, if the mother's not going to listen to us, how can we try and, sway the doula to get the mother to do what it is that we want in this birthing experience, which I think is really gross. And I've heard lots of stories about that
Yeah, we see that here
happening. But yeah, I don't think like having a certification, a doula certification, honestly, in my opinion, means nothing.
How do you handle if you even do like contracts or written words or agreements or finances or, do you have another job? Because some people, it's like hard to hold another career if you're in birth work, and sometimes it's necessary to make money.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I was doing this alongside always like having side hustles, because like the way that birth work is done here, unless you are like a certified doula and you're constantly going to hospital births or constantly going to births with medical midwives and just kind of doing it the mainstream way, you're not really going to make a lot. I mean, there are some that are, but then they're working constantly. So they're always like back to back on call, 5 births a month. And I
It's
don't
like
think,
their career.
yeah, yeah. And I can't work like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be nice to do like 5 births a month and witness all of these babies, but I also really like to make a really deep relationship with the women that I work with. Like I said, the one that I'm friends with now that I've watched her baby grow up, I have quite a few of these women that I've gone to their births and I'm still in contact with them and we're still friends and I, witnessed their children be born. So I really like to get those deep lines of connection with these women. So I do have to have other forms of ways to make money because sometimes it goes like 2, 3, 4 months where I don't go to a birth and I can't live off of, one birth
Yeah.
payment to last me that long. So I do also right now and in working in the financial sphere. So as a financial midwife, helping women and families and actually using the knowledge and like the ways that I work with women in their pregnancy journeys and experiences, bringing that to the sphere of money, working in the same way, which I found is actually really beautiful. So I do that to kind of fund my midwifery work so that I don't necessarily have to worry so much about if I only go to one birth and then not another one for 4 months, then it's fine because I've got this other work in the background that is supporting me and allowing me not to work out of scarcity,
I
which
want
I
to
was
know more
doing.
about that other work you're doing. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah. So I'm a financial midwife, is what I like to say. So I'm
Yeah.
a licensed financial advisor here in Canada. So I'm really bringing financial wellness into the sphere of women. So I work with men as well, but I tend to focus on women because that's just my niche and that's just where I feel the most comfortable. And I truly believe that money in the hands of women benefits all beings. It benefits the mothers, it benefits their families, it benefits their communities, and it will benefit the whole entire world. So what I'm doing is bringing financial concepts and getting into kind of like the masculine side of that work of like, you need to be supported as a woman, whether you're a single woman in a partnership. It doesn't matter if you have a partner that makes a whole bunch of money and is like, you don't need to do anything. Like there's women like that, and that's great, that don't want to work and make their own money. But I still believe that just having access to your own finances, being financially protected in case something emergent happens, unexpected happens in your life, having a guaranteed lump sum of money that can come into your life and make that emotional, physical, financial space of being in those traumatic times a lot easier. So it's working with women in understanding investments and how you can use investments to your benefit of building generational wealth for yourself and for your children for their futures, and how you can like learn principles of understanding taxation, especially here in Canada. We get taxed on everything, and learning how you can actually bypass being taxed and grow your money into a state of financial wealth. And yeah, not being taxed and doing it in the legal way, not just evading taxes and then, getting an audit and having to pay back all this money. It's like this is legal taxation um,
Do you only
practices.
work with people in Canada?
I do only work with people in Canada because that's where I'm licensed.
It gets probably
American.
complicated if you're like, what is other people's laws?
Yeah, no, but I do have business partners in America that
Oh,
are doing the
cool.
exact same thing. So I can always hook you up with
Good
them.
to
So you get the same, but just in your country. So yeah, it's just making sure, because if I'm working with women throughout the whole female continuum from their birth all the way to their death and everything that happens in between, money is always going to be a part of that. We need money to live. We need money to survive. That's just the economy that we live in. A barter system just doesn't work for us at this time. Like it worked in the past and it was beautiful, but it's just here, everything has a monetary value. So it's like, how can we bring wellness into your finances and not just like, oh, let's put some crystals down on a grid and start like praying with this water that we got from Mount Shasta and, hoping we get some wealth. Like that's great, but that stuff isn't rooted in anything. So you're going to be praying to the stars every week to try and get like the money that you need to survive, but it's not going to work. You need grounded and rooted principles to bringing money into your life so that you can live in your freedom, because that's what everybody wants, is just to live in our freedom and do whatever it is that we want to do without having to like count every penny to
Yeah.
be able to do it, right? So this is what I'm offering to women alongside of the traditional midwifery work for just everything else. Money is just, it's a part of our lives, and we need to bring wellness into our money. And we need to be able to know that we can be protected and know that we can start building wealth for not only ourselves, but for our children, for our grandchildren. And it's actually a lot easier than most women and people think. It's just nobody has the dedication or the devotion to doing that, to supporting themselves in this way, to look to their future and be like, we can have freedom and we can create this financial wealth for ourselves if we put this devotion into something other than immediate gratification. We can set our children up, we can set ourselves up, we can, yeah, just make life a bit easier for us. So that's what the other part of my midwifery work that I do is on the financial sphere.
Yeah. What else do you do? Can you speak a little bit to the podcast?
I mean, I feel like that's it. Everything just kind of revolves around women's stuff. So I go to women's festivals and I teach education. I've done the last couple of years hands-on education of how to hold women's wombs in bringing support to their bodies and just having women be held. I really truly feel like, everyone talks about the sister wound, the witch wound, and we need to heal that. And we're gathering in circle with women, we're crying, we're grieving, we're laughing, we're doing all these really beautiful things. And that's nice, dancing with women, having these somatic practices. But I really truly feel like to get to the depth of the healing that women need from the witch wound, the sister wound, we need to be touching each other's bodies. We need to be lovingly placing our hands on women's entire bodies, but especially the womb space, because that's where our energy of creation is. And that's where a lot of our trauma is held from women, from men, from everything. And so I do a lot of that work where it's like guiding women into how can you hold this woman's womb in deep, deep reverence so that she can feel this shift and change within her and know that there can be safety being felt from another woman with her hands on such a sacred space of hers. Like I said before, I do the menarche reclamation ceremonies, so bringing healing to women's first time of bleeding so that we can then start to heal what is actually happening throughout the entirety of their cycles and their cyclical years. Yeah, supporting and hosting mother blessing ceremonies and doing that for women so that they can step into their time of motherhood really being seen. That's a part of the rite of passage work that I do, like really understanding that women need to be witnessed and seen in these rites of passages that they're moving through, whether it's birth, whether it's creating, new business or something has happened in their life. It's always a change that needs to be witnessed so that these women can truly feel that sense of integration as they move into that next part and phase of their life. There's also a bit of work with elder women moving into their time of sagescence, which is what Jane Hardwick Collins calls menopause, is the time of sagescence. Because I still have a decade of fertility left. That's what I feel in my body. I'm only in my mid-30s and I feel like I'm going to be fertile until my mid-40s. And that's when I'll start moving through that change into my second spring. But it's also information like I need to know now, how can I support my body as she is starting to move into her wisdom years, as well as other women. It's not something that you just want to arrive to sagescence and be like, holy crap, what's happening?
Yeah.
Like it's a buildup and you can support yourself so that all of the symptomatic expressions that happen as you're moving through that transition won't be as debilitating or as jarring as they are when you're just kind of not thinking about it until then it's like, boom, it's here. And then that's why a lot of women go on hormone replacement therapy because they're not ready for this. They haven't prepared themselves mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually for this really beautiful transition into the wisdom years. So I'm speaking to women about that and women that are in my age range and older, this is a really beautiful time for us to, again, step into another greater power for ourselves as women. And we should really claim it and reclaim this, that we have this energy moving through us. So that's another piece of work that I do.
I was going to say, without even knowing what you're talking about, you could think you were talking about birth, just like
Exactly.
how there can be these symptoms or these sensations that could feel really big and scary, but if you understand what's happening in the process,
Yeah,
that charge out of it, normalize.
and that's it. Yeah, moving through sagescence or menopause, as they say in the mainstream, it is another birth experience for this woman to birth herself into her wise elder. But instead of, the birth experience just being, 1 day to 4 days, and then you have a baby, this is, it can go on for months. It can go on for a couple of years until you are then rebirthed into yourself. And that is who you are as your wise elder. So taking on the information of your birth experiences of your babies, or even your birth experiences of creating businesses or whatever it is you're bringing into the world. It doesn't necessarily have to be a child. You can use all of that energy and information in that time as you're starting to move into through that transformation of sage essence. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Thank you so much for coming on. Will you share any contact info for people listening on how they can reach out to you for all your services or just to connect?
Absolutely. So the best place to reach me is on Instagram. I'm at primal_woman_. You can send me a DM. I love speaking to women. I have really amazing chats with women behind the scenes. And then if it's getting really into it, then I usually say like, let's go onto WhatsApp and then we can send each other voice notes. I have a lot of wealth of information that I've learned and that comes through me. And I'm not into gatekeeping. So I really do love to share what it is that I have. So that's why I like being on podcasts, because I can, get a lot of stuff out there for a lot of women to hear and take in. So yeah, reach out to me via DM, or you can send me an email at primalwomanportal@hotmail.com and send me an email if you have questions about anything. Like, as I said, I speak about everything in the female continuum, and I also speak about money. I post a lot about money stuff on my Instagram because I have had to tone it down for my birth stuff just for my own protection in the way that I do. But I'm always, yeah, if you want to speak about birth, postpartum, trying to get pregnant, about your blood, young maidens and them stepping into their first time of bleeding, like I'll speak about anything. Nothing is off limits for me, honestly, because I'm like, it's just women's work. I'm just talking with women, and this is just how it's meant to be. We need to have more open lines of communication for all of the things that are going on in our lives as women. And if it's something that I don't have experience with, something that I'm not able to guide, support, witness you in, I have women in my corner. I will connect to the web and I will reach out to women and I will find someone for you that can give you what it is that you're seeking. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. We'll put that in the show notes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe. If you'd like to follow along, you can find us on Instagram at Born Wild Podcast and Facebook. You can go to our website at www.bornwildmidwifery.com. See you later.